We head out to the fan hotline here, as we do every single Tuesday at 5:20, and welcome in the great Albert Breer of the MMQB. Albert, welcome to the show.
Well, hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing very well. It's certainly an interesting time to be talking about the Cleveland Browns, as there seem to be a little bit at a crossroads here. I know you've written about this on the MMQB. Is it feasible to be having conversations about trading Myles Garrett if things get even uglier here in Cleveland?
I think it is. Now, I mean, it would take some, cap gymnastics to do that. You'd have to restructure some guys, and it might be a little messy. But I'm just here to tell you, I know a lot of people have looked at that dead cap number and are acting as if it's going to go away over the next few years. I mean, I got news for you. That number's not going away. That's proration that's been built up over time. And, it's unfortunately at one point or another, they're going to have to deal with it. And I would just argue that, in a lost season, this might be the time to do it. Now, you're going to create some problems for yourselves for next year because you'd have to restructure some guys, which pushes some of that money into 2026 and even 2027. So there would definitely be some complications to that. But you're going to have to, at some point, reckon with the proration on his contract. And I don't know, guys. I just think of this in timelines, right? And I look at it right now, and if I'm the Browns, the way I'm looking at this is, can I get good enough, fast enough to maximize what's left of Myles Garrett's prime? And I'm just looking at it. You can look at the team across the field from you on Sunday, right, in New England. Now, they're doing this, and I think there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors involved, but they're doing this with a quarterback in his second year. So even on that timeline, if you catch a comet the way the Patriots did with Drake May, you'd be talking about drafting that guy this year, and then it would be 2027 when that's happening. And Myles Garrett's turning 32 that year. That's how old Von Miller was when the Broncos traded him to the Rams. That's how old J.J. Watt was when the Texans cut him. So, and those are guys, obviously, that I think are Myles' peers from a legacy standpoint, So, I don't know. I just look at it, and I understand the attachment that every fan would have to the player, right? No question. You should have that attachment to be a great player, an all-time great player. But there's also this, realization I think you have to come to where you look yourself in the mirror and say, is this going to work with this player? Is this player worth more to us in this lost season and next year, what's probably going to be another rebuilding year where we're not quite sure what's going to happen at quarterback? And then maybe, we're now ascending in 27, like the Colts did or like the Patriots are right now. And maybe we catch the end of his prime there, but then you're building forward from that. And would the guys that you'd be putting on your roster, instead of having him, be better fits for that from a timeline perspective when you'd be talking about guys who are 22, 23, 24 years old? I think it's an interesting conversation to open up anyway. And I look at the Browns, the hole at quarterback, a hole at receiver, a hole at tackle, and I'm not sure that they can get good enough fast enough to maximize what's left of Myles Garrett's prime. And so it might be one of those situations where the best thing for everyone involved is to find him a new home.
All right, Albert, you've established the feasibility of all this. Now tell me what we're getting back in return. What is the street market value for Myles Garrett if they were able to pull something off?
2 first-round picks plus something else. I mean, that's been established. That's what Jalen Ramsey went for. That's what Micah Parsons went for. Those guys were younger, but Myles is a transcendent player. So. And he's still playing at a very high level. You know what I worry about if I were Cleveland right now is if I hold on to him for a couple more years, his value is going to descend. So if I want to trade him in 2 years, that price is going to be not what it is right now because then he's going to be well into his 30s. I think maybe the best example of it is Von Miller. I mean, again, Von Miller was about Myles' age when he was traded from the Broncos to the Rams, and he was still a good player. But at that point, he went for a second and third round pick, which is still a good price, but it's not near what he would have gotten 3 or 4 years earlier. And, like, the Broncos at the end, they weren't winning. So, like, I think if you ask the Broncos, they could kind of turn back the clock on that. They would say, yeah, we would have been better off trading him in 19 instead of 21, you know? So I don't know. Again, this sort of thinking requires some, like, hard looks in the mirror. But I would also argue, guys, the Browns took that hard look in the mirror when they decided to trade the second overall pick. And they said to themselves, we're not one player away. We need to get younger. The cost of the Deshaun Watson deal is just starting to hit us now when we have 3 years without a first-round pick. And so, I don't know. I think that what they did with the second pick, like, created a really good start when it comes to, like, injecting youth into your roster. And now you got the draft class with Graham and Schlesinger and Judkins and Fannin. And it looks like that's, like, a pretty good start to where you want to go. You can really supercharge that if you're talking about potentially having 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years.
Albert, Kevin Stefanski has kind of been 2-6. He's been the face of a 2-6 team. Andrew Berry did not speak after the the Flacco trade or the Newsom trade, and despite the first 5 years of this, him talking at the bye, he's not talking at the bye this year. So do you think that there's any part of Kevin that feels like he's been put in an impossible situation, being the face of 2-6 while also going 2-6?
Yeah, I think it's always a hard situation, you know, when, like, the coaches have to answer for everything, you know, and, like, I would sympathize with Kevin on that. I think we went over that, right, like we were talking about what Tomlin said a couple weeks ago, where, like, I do think, like, you know, in certain situations, especially like with the trade deadline next week and so many questions, big picture questions about the roster, questions about Miles, questions about the quarterback situation, it would probably help take some of the heat off of Kevin if Andrew talked. I would agree with that. You know, again, like, all teams do these things different ways, but and so it's not unusual that a general manager wouldn't talk during the year. There are plenty of teams that just, like, basically say once the general manager hands the team off to the coach, start training camp, the general manager doesn't talk. So that's not uncommon. But I'd say in this particular situation, it is a little bit of a weird look when, you know, you're 2-6 and you're going the other way after having him talk the last, you said 5 years, right? The last 5 years he was talking during his bye week.
All right, Albert, we went 4 weeks with Joe Flacco. We are now at 4 weeks of Dillon Gabriel, and a lot of the numbers look very... if I said pedestrian, it would be a compliment. They're not good. Do they stay with Dillon coming out of the bye, or do you feel like they make the move to Shedeur?
I think they're going to stick with Dillon. I don't know how long it's going to last. I would just say, like, the way it looks right now, to me at least, is they've got to do so much to generate offense to begin with. And Vrabel actually, like, had that little dig after the game, right? Did he say something about trick plays or something?
Yeah, like once they ran out of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the reality of their offense right now, and the offensive talent on hand is that they've got to do some of these things to generate yardage, you know, and that's not a great place to be. So I think the bigger picture question here is, does putting Shedeur in there solve that, or does it make it worse? You know, and, like, if you're hanging by a thread with your players, and it's like, again, like, if they're frustrated with their own production, they're frustrated with their units production, and this is specifically to the offense, not the overall team, then the only way I think you can turn to Shedeur is if he's showing it in practice, right? Because if Shedeur doesn't look good in practice, the players are going to know. And they're going to look at you like you've got two heads if you throw them in there midway through the season. Because a lot of these guys right now, I mean, again, like, you want to talk about it being a not-for-long league, like, a lot of these guys don't know which team they're going to be playing for next year. You know, so if you're not giving them the best answer at the most important position, that can affect their ability to make money next year. That can affect their ability to be in the league next year. So, like, I think, like, just listen to what Kevin's saying when he talks about the quarterbacks. I think if you listen closely to what he's saying, the answers are all there.
Albert, with all this, I want to give you a perception that I think I believe to some degree, I think a lot of Browns fans believe to some degree, and I want, maybe you can refute this or back it up in any which way. Is it fair to say that Dillon Gabriel is a Kevin Stefanski guy and that maybe Shedeur is an Andrew Berry guy?
I don't know. I mean, like, I tend to think, like, so I would say this. Like, I would say most coaches, most offensive coaches want guys who are going to go in there and run their offense at the highest level. And I think Dillon came into the league far more capable of doing that than Shedeur did. Just because he played at 3 different schools. He started, 61 games in college, played in a bunch of different systems. I think Dillon, for all of his physical limitations, and we've seen all of them now, right? For all the physical limitations, I think we can agree that Dillon's capable in those areas, right? And if it's like a battle to just get a first down, you're going to go with the guy who's got the best chance to get you the first down. And I think that's sort of where they are right now. And I don't think that has anything to do with, like, Kevin preferring one guy over the other guy. And I honestly think, like, Andrew would be with whatever the coaches want him to do. Now, if you're talking about the analytics people and all that might be different, right? But I don't think Andrew's looking at this in any other way but, like, I do want to support my head coach here. And, look, the reality is, guys, I mean, this staff has done a pretty good job this year of developing rookies, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if they're getting you results at every other position, wouldn't you trust them with the quarterbacks, even if the production's not great?
No, probably not. Just because
no.
the every other quarterback thing they've made.
We're on quarterback 12 now with Stefanski.
Well, because you guys wouldn't have a show if that were the answer, right? But I mean, like, honestly, like, but I think that's what it is, guys. Is like they've developed Schlesinger, they've developed Judkins, they've developed Fannin. They've found creative ways to use Harold Fannin, who's a really different type of player. You know what I mean? Like, they found the right ways to get the most out of these guys right away in the league. I mean, I just think, like, if the offense is playing this poorly and, like, Shedeur were some sort of better answer at quarterback, he would be in there. Like, that's the other way you lose the team, by the way, is if Shedeur is just crushing it in practice right now and you're not playing him. That would be a very fast way for Kevin Stefanski to lose that team. So I don't believe that's what's happening.
Yeah, on the development thing, though, obviously it's a good year for them in the draft, and we've kind of established that. But for the previous 5 years, we had not seen them develop talent. I can't, if I have like 3 different third round wide receivers that pop up to my head, everything from David Bell down to Cedric Tillman down to Anthony Schwartz, just immediately where you're like they hadn't been able to get these guys to a spot where they could play right away or at least have an impact right away. I mean, we went 5 years, Albert, with 1 Pro Bowler in JOK, and that was it.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, like, again, like, where do you draw the line there between the draft pick and the development, right? Like, so I think that's fair. But how many of those guys are going out other places and crushing it? Like, how many of the guys have washed out of Cleveland that have gone other places and like, oh my God, look at him now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Baker comes to mind. There's a couple different players that you would gravitate
Baker's
to.
One. I think Baker's like a different. I think they did get good play out of Baker, right? At least the first year they did, and then he was hurt his second year.
It feels more, Albert. It feels more like back in like the 1-31 days. We had a lot of like Demario Davises and Jordan Poyers and those type. And now I don't know that we have as many of those.
We got a Tommy Togiai.
Right.
Yeah, we got a Perion Winfrey. Like, we got guys like that just kind of are here and then they're gone.
Right, and I think there's like a lot of fair big picture questions to be asked on that. No question. I mean, and look, like, I think like part of what we're talking about too is the damage that Deshaun Watson trade did was so massive. I mean, it's part of the reason why it's hard to trade Garrett now, right? Because like you're already dealing with with Watson's cap charges, which is why you're, like why you would have to do all these gymnastics to trade Garrett if you wanted to, right? So there's that, and then there's 3 years without first-round picks. And this is a simple way to look at it, too, guys. Like I've seen this with teams before. I think you've seen it with the Browns a little bit. When teams don't have first-round picks, what they'll a lot of times wind up doing is they'll wind up taking chances later in the draft because it's like, okay, how do we make up for that? Well, we're going to catch somebody who's falling. And generally, like those guys fell for a reason, right? Now, you might hit on one, but you might draft a guy who's had a lot of injury issues. You might draft a guy with a character problem. And, like, in a lot of cases, you'll see teams where they trade away first-round picks, and now all of a sudden, all right, we're going to start taking swings. And, yeah, there's a chance that you hit on one of those, but then there's also a chance you swing and miss, which is almost like now you've missed on 2 picks because you don't have the first-rounder and you don't have the pick that you missed on.
Albert, many of our young team members are afraid of haunted houses. Is Albert Breer?
No, I used to love that stuff when I was a kid.
See, that's the right response.
The one thing I don't like. I loved like the Halloween series when I was a kid. I think I was in high school when like Scream and I don't know what you did last summer. All that came out, right? Big Nev Campbell fan when I was a teenager. I would say the one thing that I don't like, roller coasters, all that different stuff, is anything that makes me dizzy. So, like, they have, there's one at a park up here called the Turkish Twist, where, and I'm sure you guys have these too. I'm sure they exist everywhere, but they're, like, it's called something else. You're up against a wall, and the room starts spinning, and then the floor drops from underneath you, and you're stuck to the wall.
Oh, yeah,
so
I don't like that.
On one of those ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So stuff like that I don't like. But scary movie. You know what scared me more than any movie ever when I was a kid?
What's that?
Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, especially when they did aliens things. I was like, man, I don't want to be probed.
But
this sounds awful.
Well, that was your big fear.
The magic of that show, though, was somehow it would always make you believe. Like, you would go to bed thinking that there was a chance that spaceship that was abducting people was going to land in your backyard. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or that the killer that was on the loose, like, that he, like, very well could be in your neighborhood. That was, like, the magic of that show, is it made you believe that whatever threat that they were doing a segment on, that threat was real, and that threat could very well be out your window if you, like, pulled the shades down.
Yeah, Robert Stack sold it in the best possible way. By the way, I grew up with the Turkish Twist being a totally different thing. I don't think we can have that conversation on air there, Albert. Albert, great stuff, man. You've been on top of the Myles Garrett stuff. We appreciate your time, buddy.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
We appreciate you. Albert Breer there of the MMQB on the Fan Hotline.